Good morning, everyone. In this class, we are going to discuss about how to read a file, and how to write it. Read a file and write into another file. Okay, another file. So before going to start coding, we have to analyze what are the steps it is required. What are the steps it is required to do this one? Okay. So in order to read and write a file, in order to read, read is one process, write is one process. Just think logically. Okay. Read is one process and write is one process. So here we require, okay, we require two files. We require two files. One is read file, another one is write file. Read is nothing but it's like this is input file, and write is output file. Okay. So whenever the requirement came, okay, first you have to read the requirement. You have to understand the requirement. So what is the requirement here? How to read a file and write it into another file. Okay. So read is nothing but it's like reading the data from a file. Write is nothing but we are going to write all the records or whatever the necessary records into another file. So we require two files. Okay, well and good. Here, first we need to think whether the input file is present in our system. Present in our system. If not, create sample file. Okay, create sample file. So we need to check the input file is present in our system or not. If it is not, then create sample file. Then, okay, how to read a file and write it into another file. So what type of data, whether it is the input data is whether it is a student data or employee data or customer data. Okay, we have to think like this, and we need to check whether these files are present or not. Okay, suppose here we are going to take our input file contains employee data. So what are the necessary fields? What is the input layout? Okay. So employee number 5 bytes. Just observe this one. So this is very, very important. The layout is EMP name 10 bytes. EMP address 5 bytes. EMP phone 10 bytes. EMP salary 5 bytes. See, writing the code is very simple. We can get it from Google, or we can get it from existing programs. But we need to understand the requirement, first of all. So what we need to do? So we need to read employee file and write it into another file. Okay. So for that one, we need an input file. Okay. Just to prepare one input file with this layout. With this layout. 5 bytes. So next 10 bytes. Next 10 bytes is employee name. Only 5 bytes it is available. I'm going to keep it as Bangalore. This is a phone number. After that one, five bytes. So here, if you use Notepad++, if you are using Notepad++, there is one option. There is one option. You can easily identify. So while selecting this one, okay. So how many bytes it is present? So there are only 8 bytes. So you can see here, selected 8. Selected 8. Okay. Selected 8. 9, 10. Okay. Then address. Address how many bytes? So this is very, very important. So this is how you need to adjust. Otherwise data will get truncated. Okay. Otherwise data will get truncated. So this is fine. And this is my phone number. Phone number is only 9 bytes it is present. So after this okay. So now what is the total length here? The selected is 35. So if we calculate this entire layout, it would be 35. 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35. Okay. This is how we need to adjust. Next, Hyderabad. Some phone number. So salary. Chennai. So normally this input file should be present in our mainframe. So no need to create, but if you want to practice, we need to create like this. Okay. The input file is very, very important. So this is for salary. Okay. So I'm going to create just for 5 records here. Okay. So now the input file is ready. Now we can remove this layout. See, based on this layout, you need to create it. So first 5 bytes, employee number, employee name, employee address, phone number, salary. So if you see here, we have added 10 bytes for, okay, 10 bytes for phone number, after 5 bytes, salary. So while declaring, suppose the phone number, if we have given 9 of 9, the rest of the things it will consider as for salary. So you have to be careful. Okay, careful while declaring. Okay, I'm going to save this one. I'm going to save this employee input.txt. Okay, input.txt. So txt is already there. Input. So now my input file is ready. Now my input file is ready. Okay. So output file, we are going to write it from program. So no need to bother about that one. Okay. Now what is the process? So here we have two files. One is input file and one is output file. So the input file is ready. So if it is not present in our system, so I have created it. So next step, it's very, very important. So like coding. In coding, what are the steps? And what are the steps it is involved? So here, file processing life cycle, we need to keep it in a mind. File processing life cycle. So the first step is file declaration and definition. Next step is file open. So the third step is file process. So what is processing here? So the processing should be read or write steps. Okay. So both we are going to call it as file process. Finally, file close. Finally, file close. So these are the steps we need to follow. Just observe here. Go to coding sheet. So we have already developed one program. So I'm taking the same program. Okay, just I'm going to modify here. So what is the first step? File declaration. So how many files it is required? We require two files. One is input file and another one is output file. I'm going to keep it as, so this is for employee. Employee INP. So this is my input file. I'm going to keep it like this. So here, just upload your input file, employee input.txt. My upload is failing. So, okay, upload is failing. Just refresh this one. So the first step is file declaration. The first step is file declaration. So how many files we need to declare? We need to declare two files. One is for input file and another one is for output file. Okay. Just copy this employee input.txt. Okay, fine. Employee input.txt. Okay, one file is ready. Next, I need to declare one more file. employee out file. So this is how we can declare number of files. So up to 255 files we can declare here. Up to 255. Either it is input or output, whatever it is, we can declare here. Okay. Okay. Now the declaration is done for input and output. Next, file definition. File definition. So file definition for EMP input. Next, employee input record. So what are the fields? First one is EMP ID. Next one, employee name for the 10 bytes. Next, employee address for 5 bytes. Employee phone is 10 bytes. So the next one is 05 employee salary. Pick 9 of 5. Okay. So up to this part is clear. Next, we need to declare file definition for output file 2. Output file 2. See, whatever the files you declare, we need to define. You need to define for the same here. For the same here. EMP out. Okay. EMP out. So instead of INP, you can give outrec. Here also employee output ID. Otherwise, you can give. So this is an output field. So out EMP ID. Out EMP name. So this is how we can declare. This is how we can declare file definitions. So declaration is done. So declaration for input file and output file. Okay. You need to define file definition. Okay. In output file, I don't want phone number, suppose. So that is your wish. So it's not mandatory to keep everything in the same order. So output file, however you want, you can write it. First name, then address, salary. So that is your wish. But the input file should be based on your input records. Based on your input records. Okay. So the declaration and definition is done. So the next step is file open. File open. Open input. What is the file name? EMP input. So this is my file name, correct? So that's why I have given EMP INP. Okay. So one file is we have opened. So there is one more file. So that is for output file. You have to give output emp out. Emp out. So before going to process, we are opening the files. We are opening the files. So that's what we have discussed, right? File declaration and definition is done. Then file open. Then file open. Next, file process. Inside the file process, we need to read the file. In which file we need to read? emp inp. Okay. Employee input file. If it is at the end, we are setting one indicator because we need to process all the records. So whenever it is Y, so it will end this process. I mean, it will end this paragraph. Okay. Next, 500, move and write data. So if it is not at end, it will come to 500 paragraph. So here, just observe carefully. So whatever the input data it is there, we have to move it into output variables. We have to move it into output variables. Output variables. Just observe here. So what are the fields it is available? Move employee ID to out emp ID. So this is how we need to move all the fields. All the fields. Out emp name. Move emp address to output field. See, whatever the fields you are moving, it will come to output. Suppose instead of address, we have moved to phone number. So the phone number only it will come to this output fields. You have to be careful while moving the data. Out emp salary. Okay. Now, if you want, you can display. If you want, you can display in console. Otherwise, no, not required. Emp out rec. Emp out record. So that means it will display entire group layout. Okay. So first, what we have done? First, we have declared two files. One is input and one is output file. The same way, we have declared the output layouts. Sorry, input and output layouts. So that is input layout, and this is for output layout. So it's not mandatory to keep whatever the values it is present in input layout in output. So it should not be the same always. So this is your wish. So I want only employee ID and name. Then you can keep only employee ID and name. So it's not mandatory. Next, coming to procedure division. What is the first step? File open. File open. So it will come to 100 file open. Here we are opening two files. Open input. So if you want, you can write open output too. So, but this open will work for both. Open input employee, open output for employee out. So this is how we can open. Otherwise, we can give like this also. Okay. Before processing the files, we are opening the two files. One is input file and one is output file. Next, it will come to 200 file process until end of the file is true. So we have 5 records. We have 5 records. So in order to read 5 records, we are going to set this indicator and we are using until. If you don't give until, it will read only one record. Okay, it will read only one record. Next, it will come to 200 file process, employee input. It is not at end. It will move to 500, move write data, move write data. So here we are moving input value to output variables. So after moving it, so how to write? So we need to use a keyword, write keyword, write, employee outrec. So whatever the data it is present in this outrec, automatically it will write it into this employee out file. Okay, this employee out file. See, while reading, we are using the file name. Just observe, while reading, we are using the file name employee inp. But while writing, no need to use file name. Just use the record layout. So whenever you use record layout, automatically it will understand. Oh, this is output file. Okay, write it into this file. Okay. This is how we can read and write the data. So number of files. So if you want to read 10 files, you can declare 10 files here, 10 file definitions here. Okay. So you need to open all the 10 files, whether it is input or output. Then you need to process it. Finally, we are going to close it. So what are the files we have opened? There are 2 files we have opened. One is employee input and one is employee output. So this is how we can read and write the data. So it's like a read process only, but there is a bit change. Like while writing into the file, we are going to use write record, not file. So everything is same. Like declaration and definition and moving and all the parts are same only. But while writing into the data, you have to remember, you have to use record layout. Just execute this one. Okay. We are in 100 file open. So there is one error, permission denied. So here there is a problem. We don't have access to create the files. Like we don't have access to write the files. That is one issue here. But the process is same. So that's why it is showing there is one error. So permission is denied. Also, whenever you are saying the data, okay, read and write, you can give just .cob. It will get highlight. With COBOL format. Okay, COBOL format. Now I'm going to remove this output syntax. Okay, output file syntax. Just remove this one. But the process is same. So just you have to remember. So how to read and write. Okay. So now not required this one. So we are going to keep it into working storage section. Now remove this output file. No need to close the output file too. And no need to write. So in order to write from one file to another file, what we need to do? So just declare one file here and file definition 2. So after reading it, just move input values to output variables, and there is a keyword. Write keyword. Okay, just write it. Just execute this one now. See, now we are able to read the file. Now we are able to read the file. Okay, here I want to print only Bangalore records. Just try to display what is there in address. So in which variable address is present? Out emp address. Okay, just try to execute this one. See, address, it is coming as HYD as well as phone number 2. So there is something it is missing. See, I have given as employee address as 15 bytes. So that's why it is coming as, okay, 15 bytes. So you have to be careful while declaring the variables. Just execute now. See now, address equal to Bangalore, address equal to Hyderabad, address equal to Hyderabad. Okay, fine. Now I want to display. So where is my display? So I need to keep if condition in between this one. Okay, in between this one. So what we need to do? Just very simple. If address equal to Hyderabad, then end if. Just execute this one. Okay. So there is a 5 bytes, right? 3, 4, 5. So we need to queue like this. So still it is not working. Okay, just try to display what is there. Either it is a small letters. See, it is a case sensitive. Suppose the data which you have given as small letters, you have to give it in a small letters. Data. Okay, data. Otherwise, you can give it in a caps also. So this is how we can print. This is how. Also, if you want to add salary, okay, and the salary also out EMP salary greater than or equal to 50,000. So here we are going to write 2 conditions. Okay. So there are no conditions is There are no conditions were satisfied. So that's why there is no data got displayed. See here now. So today's task, create two input files and read the data. When the ID is matching in both the files, write it into output file. Okay. Suppose. So this is one input file. Just observe here. This is one input file. And this is another input file. This is another input file. So here the records also different, but the matching key is only for this one. Matching key is only this one. So here you can write something X, Y, Z, whatever it is. Okay, whatever it is. So not required for this many fields also. Just assume. So this is one input file, and this is another input file. Second input. Okay, you can call it as second input file. So the one is first input file. So what is our requirement is read the data from both the files. Read the data from both the files. So whenever the record is matching, in both the files. Write it into another output file. So here how many files it is required? 2 input, 1 output file is required. You need to write the logic in process file. Okay, just try to practice this one. Also there is one thing. Okay, so we are not able to write it into output file. Okay, so in this case what we need to do, instead of writing into output file, just display in a console. So no need to declare output file and no need to write the logic for write logic. Okay, no need to write logic for output files. Just whatever we have done so far, right? Like this. Okay, so here I am displaying only match record should display in my console. So what is match records here? So just match records are 103. So first you need to read this one and you need to compare with this one. Again you need to read this one and you need to compare. Again you need to read this one and you need to compare. Okay, 10003 is matching. So then we need to write this record into output file, I mean console. Next 10004 is matching. Okay, write it into console. 10005 is not matching, just leave it. Only 2 records are matching. So my output should be only this 2 records. So read the data from both the files, and when the IDs is matching, display in a console. So actually our requirement is write it into output file, but we don't have access to create output files here. We don't have access to write output files here. So that's why display in a console, output console. Okay, display in a output console like this. Okay, So only matched records. So now you need to read two input files. That's it. In file declaration also, just declare two input files because we don't have access for output files. Okay. Two input file declaration should be done in here, and file definition also. Next, you need to open two input files here, and you need to write file process. So here we need to read two files. Here we are reading one file, right? So you need to read two files, and you need to write the logic for that one. Compare logic. Okay. Compare logic. So this is the task for today. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now.